was committed to human and civil rights, who was very committed to their families and to making a difference in the county. I'm just very blessed that there is such a legacy. I mean, I spoke of my uncle, who was the first African American elected in 1961 to Dumfries Town Council.
And what was his name?
John Wilmer Porter. One of the courageous four to integrate the schools, the first wave of black teachers to go into the public school systems once they did the test year to integrate, was his wife, Mary G. Porter. And there's a school in Woodbridge, the Mary G. Porter Traditional School, named after her. Out on Route 234, my great-grandmother was a Reed. And on 234 across from Montclair is Washington Reed Elementary School. So the family has a real legacy in the community. I've just tried to carry that legacy forward by doing the very best I can to make sure that the citizens and the people of Prince William County have a nice and fair place to live. And I've shared with with my wife. She knows the song, the one song that they can sing at my funeral. I don't care what else they do. But the song is an old song in the African American church, "If I Could Help Somebody." So that's certainly one, what I have done. I have, to be quite honest with you, have not benefited in any way, financially for anything that I've done in Prince William County. I have done my very best to help, someone else out.
Well, you talked about helping someone else have a better place to live. I know there was an issue with your parents in buying property in Montclair.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Yes, and ironically, today I just had my Human Rights Commission retreat. We do this about once a year, and a part of the retreat is really training of commissioners who really are citizen appointees to the commission by the board of supervisors. Part of that training was the Fair Housing Act. And in my conversation, or at least in the training today, I learned that a lot of the Fair Housing Act occurred in 1968. Well, around 1967 or 1968, my parents were in the process of thinking about moving out of the city of Manassas into what would be their final home. And the first place they went was a community called Lake Montclair, which is on 234, which is now Montclair. My mom and dad went, they toured the house, they looked at the property, they loved it. They put down their down payment check. This would have been around 1967, 1968, around that time. They put down their check, and then a few days later, the representative from Lake Montclair drove to the house of Manassas and kindly gave them their check back, and said they did not meet the income requirements to purchase the land at Montclair. And the important thing to realize is at that point in time, my dad was a federal employee, and my mother was a county school teacher. So both of them had good incomes and excellent credit. So, but Montclair just didn't see it that way. And shortly after that, they went off of Davis Ford Road into a community called Occoquan Forest. And it was a new community, a wooded community, and they were able to buy a lot that was much larger than the lot in Montclair, and was able to plan to build a house bigger than what was planned to be in Montclair, and put down about the same amount of money on the deposit, and it went through. Research Homes and Development cashed a check. So it leads one to believe as to whether or not there were discriminatory practices. I will also say that when Montclair celebrated, it must have been their 40th or their 50th anniversary, they did contact my dad, because I guess they went back to the records as to people who were initial buyers there. And I think they wanted to interview him about Montclair, and he told them he would be happy to tell them about how they returned his check. And they said that was okay, so he was not interviewed. They didn't want to hear that story.
That's a great story to end with. My goodness. Do you have any final words for this documentary?
I do. It just a couple of other things I'd just like to talk about briefly as we wrap up. Two significant things I think happened in Prince William County under my term as NAACP president. One, we end up with the name Chin Park, which is the flagship park in Prince William County. At the time, there were no parks named after African Americans in the county, given the history of not only my family but other families in this community. And as NAACP president, and working with the Park Authority Board, Library Board, and the Chin family, who owned a lot of what is now Lake Ridge, we were able to get that park named after Mary Jane Chin, who was a freed slave. So Chin Park, the stellar park in Prince William County, is named after an African American woman. We were also very instrumental in getting the first African American judge on the bench in Prince William County, Judge Janice Wellington. As president of NAACP, I was well aware that there was a push in the General Assembly to get a female on the bench. And once I got word of that, we advocated for an African American female to be on the bench. That was not their particular plan. They had someone else in mind for that position. But you know how things work in politics. There ended up being a vacancy in General District Court, and the person they wanted in General District Court, they put there, and the person that I was advocating for, along with other people, became juvenile court judge, and she is a juvenile court judge today, Janice Wellington. And a lot of that work is NAACP work, and some other people in the community, Willie Williams and George Hampton, who worked the General Assembly. So I guess the last thing I have to say is that I'm honored to be a part of this process, this history project, and I hope what I've had to say has been educational for people today and generations to come.
Well, on behalf of Congressman Gerald Connolly, I can tell you that your testimony has been so valuable in this archive. And on behalf of the Congressman, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I mean, you just came from your commission meeting. It's a Saturday. You're giving up your time, your effort, your knowledge, so future generations, future scholars and historians will understand the struggles of civil rights. A lot of the newer generations don't realize that African Americans really couldn't just go and vote. Right. A lot of people, like you said, had been chased by dogs, water hoses, had been beaten and lost their lives so others could vote. So it's so important to collect all the testimonies, the memories of those people about not only what they experienced, but what their families experienced in the struggles of civil rights. So again, on behalf of Congressman Connolly, on behalf of George Mason University Folk Life Department, the Library of Congress, both libraries of Prince William County and Fairfax County, we want to thank you, Mr. Porter, for your participation in this project. Thank you.